our special town hall meeting, Thursday, October 7th. We will have, we want to make you feel heard, valued, informed, and connected to your town and its council. We welcome diversity of opinion and want minority views as well as majority views to be heard. We also appreciate mutual respect despite opposing view. We'll begin with roll call. Councilmember Terry Fowler.
Here.
Councilmember Tom Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Jaffe.
Here.
Councilmember Brian Vinson.
Here.
Councilmember Simeon White.
Here.
And ordinance confirmed. Mike Jaffe will lead us in a pledge of allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in prayer. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to gather here and represent our fine little town. I pray, as Tara said, that you would bless our gathering and just allow us to come to this with open hearts and open minds and to just work together in a way that glorifies you and your kingdom. I pray all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Okay, and our items of community interest, we have a big thanks to Bob Bowles, who donated the speakers that we're able to use tonight, so hopefully you can hear us much more clearly. Thank you so much. Also, Don Yost, you'll see the two new, the orange and the blue microphone set with the spit covers. Thanks to Don Yost, we're very grateful. We wanted them to be distinguished, so they are. Okay, so first we have on our consent agenda approval of the minutes from September 7th, 2021 workshop town council meeting.
I see I had one correction on page 7, about 3/4 down, where it says Councilmember Anderson. It says Dan is equipment salesman and so is Marty, and that's incorrect. Dan is the road equipment salesman, Marty is not. So that part should be struck. And then there's a following sentence.
Excuse me, Tom. I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We'll go ahead and move it from the consent agenda then to the regular agenda so that we can go ahead and discuss it. You have
Okay.
valid points. Let's go ahead. All those in favor of moving it to the regular
We need a
agenda?
motion and a second, right?
We
So,
do.
motion to move the minutes to the regular agenda. Second.
Okay, so all those in favor? And that is approved, okay? So now it's moved, that consent agenda item is moved to the regular agenda item, so then go carry on, Tom, thank you.
Yeah, just to get it correct, this is page 7, about 3/4 down, where it starts off saying Council Member Anderson as Judge Stovall, and Randy Strait if they could get a breakdown on roads. Then the next sentence says Dan is equipment salesman and so is Marty, but that's incorrect. If I said that, it's incorrect. Dan is an equipment salesman, Marty is not, as far as I know. And then the following, so it should end there, and then the following sentence says we should ask them both on how they would use it. I have no idea what that's asking. I would strike that whole sentence because I have no idea what it's meaning. It's actually Dan is a road equipment salesman. That's what I intended to say. That's all I have.
So remember when we were going to authorize the checks, that they wanted us to have the full name for all these, and I was just seeing the council members as council member, Vincent, council member Jaffe. It doesn't say was this not? No, there we go. I was going to say that whenever we went to get our checks authorized and us to get on the signature, that they wanted our minutes to have the first and last name.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I would also suggest that we add all the first and last names to this one as well. And just kind of make that a habit.
Okay, so let's go ahead and, can we go ahead and vote on this particular amendment by Anderson Is there a second to go ahead and amend that? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment as recommended by Councilmember Anderson? Raise your hand. Okay. All right, that'll be amended. All right. And thank you, Simeon. I've seen some that will actually put the full names at the beginning of the minutes so that you don't have to say complete names the whole way through, because it gets very cumbersome, when you're doing 14 pages and such. So, do you agree with that? Okay. So, do we have a motion to maybe put full names of the council member and those who were present, maybe the quorum?
I'd make that motion.
Okay. Can you go ahead and state that motion as you like it?
I make a motion to put the first and last names of each councilman at the start of the minutes.
Okay. And there's a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay.
But while we're speaking of minutes, I don't know if this is the proper time, but I really don't think this is proper to try to have the secretary be a court reporter and transcribe statements. There's too many mistakes. It's better, in my opinion, and then what I heard at the Bastrop, since we had videos, is to just let the summary statements stand, and if anybody challenges it, we always have videos. If we didn't have a video, that would be a problem. But trying to get quotes is not only cumbersome, time-consuming, takes a lot of time, and it leads to mistakes. So my feeling is we should not be doing transcripts as if this is a court reporter. We should just do the summary statements.
While I agree with you, Tom, I don't think that's a motion.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, bro.
While I agree with you, I don't think that's a motion we can take up right now. I think that would have to be in the actual agenda item.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, noted. All right, so any other on this particular meeting minutes? Any other amendments to the 14-page document? Okay, so without any further amendments, the last two will stand and we will move on. So, on the regular agenda, discuss and consider amendments of decorum and rules of procedure.
Let's move that one. Let's also move that one for discussion.
It's on regular.
It's on regular. But you may have an older one. No, I think you have an older. Miss Dorothy, can you bring that copy that's there of the agenda? That's an older copy. It wasn't. Thank you. Okay, so we have here on the regular agenda number 1, discuss and consider amendment of decorum and rules of procedure. So this is the resolution that we discussed last meeting. It's in pretty good form, I think, but we wanted to, Tom, actually, when I emailed this out to Tom, he had an issue with the order, and then after thinking about it, I'm like, I think you're right. So I submitted this sheet to make it maybe more clear, and after discussing it with Tom, the way we've done it all different ways and all different orders. What I really disliked was just announcing the item and then asking for public comments, because then you end up with people not really understanding what the agenda item is about. But if we announce it and then we discuss it as a council first and kind of exhaust it a little bit, and then allow the public to go ahead and comment before we make a motion, the way we voted it in last time, and this is what Tom had a problem with and didn't understand that that's what we were voting, that we make a motion, second it, and then allow for public comment. But after thinking about it, I was like, would be awkward then, because we would have to amend it. Say someone said something impassionate and we thought about it and it makes a lot of sense, we want to listen to our citizens, then it would be awkward to have to then amend it. So I kind of feel like he's right in that, but that's open for discussion. We have done it all three ways because of, I know there's been times when I missed a card or something. So we have actually done all three ways, but to me, it's not good to not have any conversation, and then it's a little late to have it after a motion, but it's nice to have it right there in the middle so that they feel a part of the discussion. Any thoughts on that? Okay, so we have this insert here, so it's A through K instead of what's written in the actual document A through J. So we have a motion to replace consideration agenda items.
Yeah, I make a motion that we place consideration of items on page 4 with the handout that we got recently with a corrected order and a few statements about that more reflect what we really do as opposed to what maybe Julia does.
Okay, so we have a motion, it's been seconded to insert this amendment into page 4 of the document. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
I just had one more thing I wanted just to clarify. I'm pretty sure we're required by law. I was going to ask Patricia if she was here, but it says for the vote of the council that, and I'll just read it real quick. It says, unless otherwise provided by law, majority of the council is required for approval of an issue. The town council is made up of 5 councilmen, making the majority 3 votes, and the mayor is not given a vote. Just in case of an absentee, I think we should include, pretty sure we're required to anyways, but include that the mayor can vote in case of a tie.
Yes, and what page is that?
Or, right
Yeah,
under
4.
Oh, you're right, and that was probably Julia's.
maybe we can just say accepted the amendment, that's fine.
Okay, we have a motion for that.
Yeah, I make a motion to give the mayor here in the vote of town council, say unless in the case of a tie.
What if can you refer to the page?
It's
The
page
page
4
4.
at the bottom.
The bottom paragraph.
Right here. So, right.
Okay, so can you read it again, please?
And I guess we'll just read it.
The way you would like to have
Let's
it.
see. Yeah. Let's see, it says the town council is made up of 5 councilmen, making a majority of 3, and the mayor is not given a vote. I propose to add in, unless in the case of a tie.
Okay. Except in the event of a tie or the case of a tie, how do I say it?
Yes, in the event of a case of a tie.
Which one?
In the case of a tie.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to revise the bottom of page 4 to say the mayor is not given a vote except in case of a tie. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. I did make a call in to Patricia right before the meeting. On the page 6, this is the middle of the page, under resolutions, it says here, I'll read the whole paragraph. Resolutions are acts of a relatively permanent nature and remain in effect until rescinded or remitted by town council. Generally, resolutions implement or carry out the terms of an ordinance, provided a statement of policy or express council's opinion on a public matter. Resolutions shall be written in a written form but need not be published. And then it says resolutions shall be drafted or pre-approved by the town attorney. So I called Patricia because that didn't sound quite right to me. And she agreed that it doesn't It does not have to be, because it's kind of an internal kind of thing. And so this would cost us more money, because it would mean that, for instance, on this very document, Councilmember Jackie was able to pull from Tulia, and she said, yeah, cities do that all the time. It saves you why reinvent the wheel. You can do that, but the way this is written, it says pre-approved and drafted by an attorney. It doesn't have to be. So I would suggest that maybe we have resolutions may be drafted and may be approved by the town attorney, not shall. Shall means you must. May means you can, but you don't have to. Okay. So I move that we amend that sentence to say resolutions may be drafted and may be approved by the town attorney. Or, well, let's see, resolutions may be drafted or may be approved, maybe and or.
Do we need that sentence at all?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you could just say resolutions do not need to be pre-approved with the town attorney, or just leave it out. Need not be published, period. Just strike it.
Well, for some, she said it's good to do that. And I guess it's up to what you decide.
So the only thing I know personally about resolutions, they're used quite frequently, but they have lasting effects. You have the future councils can overturn those. Just take, for instance, a city that takes over a mutual fund or something like that. They make a resolution that they will continue to do X, Y, Z. So, I mean, it's just an internal resolution that council decided. At any time it can be overturned. But any ordinance can be overturned. So I don't personally see why we need to have an attorney, but that doesn't keep us from consulting with us.
Well, we have the option of the attorney writing it and approving it, or anybody can write it and the
Yeah.
attorney can review it.
We always have that option to
Right.
consult with an attorney. So either way.
But I agree, we don't need them to draft every one, or we're gonna spend a lot of money.
Right, so that's
We can start a lot of these on our own and then just tweak them.
So is,
I still think we can cut the sentence completely. So I move that we strike resolutions shall be drafted by or pre-approved by the town attorney.
And then we can just, case by case, we can send it to the attorney if it's something complex.
okay, so a motion's been made and seconded to strike that sentence entirely. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. I need to be saying that, don't I? I'm sorry. So Cindy and seconded that? Thank you. It's been 4 years of the two, yeah. I need to be saying that.
Okay, I have several points of clarity. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. So we're going to start off on page 2 under special meetings. Special meetings shall be said at such times as are necessary or appropriate and may be called by the mayor, or via a memorandum requesting special meetings signed by any 2 council members and submitted to the town secretary. Next sentence, the mayor shall call a special meeting via a memorandum requesting such signed by at least 3 council members. So 2 council members can request it, but if the mayor calls for a special meeting, we have to have 3 council members sign on.
What Emily Rowland, the assistant attorney, said, she said that by law, if 3 council members have requested it, you must have one. And that was her understanding, because but if 2, then you may.
Okay, so it comes down to the mayor shall in those sentences.
Would you like to reword that somehow?
No, as long as I understand it, I don't want to amend it, I just want to understand
three of us, Tom, myself, and Jackie, then it's a thou shalt not do. You have to call a special meeting.
That's my understanding from what she said. And that's a checks and balances, which I think that's really good.
Okay, so I'm good with moving on without an amendment. Does anybody else want to propose an amendment? Okay. On page 3, next page, who may place agenda items on the agenda? Items may be placed on the agenda by the mayor or town council. Should that be town council members? If you say by town council, then to me, that's a majority vote, which means that we actually come to a meeting to declare what's going to be on the meeting agenda.
Okay.
Well, in the earlier paragraph, we called them members of the town council.
Okay.
So why don't we just make it the same and just say members of the town council?
So we have a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
If you read through here, the next roll call is town council members, and if you down a little bit further, then it's town council.
So there's town council members quite a bit through here, so I guess this is the one that doesn't have.
Yeah, it looks like either would be acceptable. So,
Okay, do we have a motion for the top of page 3 for an amendment on that one?
Yeah, I make a motion, we reword the first sentence to be items may be placed on the agenda by the mayor or town council members.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion's been made by Jaffe and seconded by Anderson that we amend the sentence on the top of page 3 to say items may be placed on the agenda by the mayor or town council members. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, anything else?
oh yeah, at the bottom there, page 3, quorum requirements. It says, except to adjourn, a quorum is necessary to conduct business at any meeting of the town council. I continued reading, but I couldn't see anything that states what the requirements to adjourn are. We have an exception to a rule, but we don't have what the rule is in this case. So, does the mayor have the right to declare adjournment?
Yeah, we said the last meeting that the mayor does not need a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
That's what Patricia said.
And again, I'm seeking to understand more than to amend, so if that's the commonly accepted principle, then I do not seek an amendment. Just got another couple. Let's see, on page 5, second paragraph towards the end of the paragraph, starting with however. It says, however, the mayor/presiding officer may recognize individuals to speak who did not sign the appropriate sign-up sheet. So can council members also request someone who didn't sign up to speak? Or is that exclusively?
I think the chair in most meetings can call upon like experts or folks who might have some information that would be relevant. I think that's pretty commonly used in practice, and that's my understanding.
Agreed, but that was covered in another.
Well, that's
that was
covered
covered
in
elsewhere.
consideration of the agenda items that council members may ask anyone present. The specific question of clarification.
Okay, but that's specific questions for clarification. The way that I read this, it sounded like if you did not sign up, but if the mayor wanted you to speak, then you're able to speak. And I just wanted to understand if that was the intent.
Actually, I think that is a good point to add it in like this, because I can envision situations where there's somebody with pertinent information that hadn't signed up on an issue, like we've had with the trash collection, for example. And the mayor has said, you can speak because it's information pertinent before our vote, even though they hadn't signed up. But it didn't really come about until after we got into the meeting. So, my opinion is, yeah, we ought to leave it like that. Allow that in special situations, where there's something unique that needs to be brought out, let the mayor call somebody from the audience.
Okay. And I'm fine with that. Do the council members also have that privilege?
In Robert's rules typically no.
What we do here.
But you do here in the consideration of agenda items.
Council members may ask anyone present a specific question for
For
clarification.
clarification.
Correct.
Anybody present.
And I understand that in the rules we're saying we can ask someone for clarification, we can ask them if they're an expert, but this particular paragraph is not saying the person has to be an expert. We're not saying that they have to be asked for clarification. We're just saying that the mayor, the presiding officer, may recognize individuals to speak who did not sign the appropriate sign-up sheet.
Would you rather it say an expert in the field or what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I want to understand it. And if,
Do you think it would be, is there some discussion on it? Do you think it would be better to specify that it's an expert in the field or someone who would shed light on things?
Can we just scratch the sentence and go back to the consideration of agenda items? Because I'm following you now. This is basically saying that after it's done, we're not even asking for consideration. It says that the mayor can just ask someone who didn't speak to speak. So if we're not asking for clarification at that point, now we're just asking for additional comments, is what this is allowing. Is that how you're saying? It's just asking for comments. Yeah, so I'm okay with striking it. The consideration of agenda items is our process.
Do we have a motion for
I mean, is
that?
that what you're thinking? I don't know. I get what you're asking.
I was seeking clarity. I'm okay with it, but I want to make sure that when we're passing something, we know what we're passing, we understand what we're passing. So, I would prefer that either, we strike the sentence where we have the council members may as well, so that we have good representation across the board. I understand we have the consideration of agenda items already incorporated. So, to me, the consideration of agenda items is more specific and would suit the purpose of what we're trying to achieve.
I could see an instance where maybe someone showed up late and you would need, the chair would need to acknowledge that person maybe and have them speak to something, but it probably wouldn't be a common thing, but.
Just a what if. So what if we start talking about something that people didn't sign up for and they're really big city? Well, I didn't realize that's what you were talking about. Now we've excluded all those people that we wanted to hear from. So this would allow that. If 17 people stand up behind that podium and say, well, I want to speak too.
Well, usually in Robert rules, the presiding officer, whoever that may be, is supposed to make sure that that doesn't happen. So,
If nobody else feels it needs an amendment, I just wanted to make sure that we understand what we're passing. And right now, to me, that is a phrase that is giving the presiding officer, in most cases that will be the mayor, a big card to play.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got a lot of, the mayor still has the power to call on people if they're an expert, call on people if they signed up. I mean, there's also general comments. I mean, do we really want to put in the power to a council member or a mayor to just call up whoever? Because I imagine that could be a way to delay things in a worst case scenario. Not that it would happen with us, but potentially.
I guess to me, it says may, presiding officer may, instead of will, shall. So that's up to the mayor or presiding officer to ask for any phone comments after that.
Right, that gives them permission / authority to do it. The more I think about it, I am thinking I would move to strike that sentence.
okay, the motion has been made, seconded to strike the sentence in top of page 5 However, the mayor/presiding officer may recognize individuals to speak who did not sign the appropriate sign-up sheet. All those in favor of striking that? And that passes unanimously. Okay,
Clarification, Mr. Secretary.
Fowler.
And I think I only have two more. Yes. So, let's see, staying on page 5 towards the bottom, in the paragraph that starts in order, it says, the mayor/presiding officer may, at his or her discretion, shorten the time for speaking. So this is in recognition that everybody has 3 minutes unless they need an interpreter. Based on this sentence, it seems like at the mayor's sole discretion, he or she may cut somebody off and say, you're done. Is that how it's being interpreted by others?
I feel like that should actually be in the next paragraph, maybe, in case of any of the abusive type of behavior. Maybe that needs to be the paragraph underneath that. I don't know why that's there exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, so I could see a reason if somebody was standing up there and just, flinging obscenities, but that wouldn't give that power without something like, if they're breaking a rule within this, ordinance or resolution, it's actually within the resolution that the mayor at sole discretion may shorten the time.
I would think it just needed to be done at the beginning of the meeting. If we've changed it, okay, how are you going to pick and choose? Okay, you get 3 minutes, you get 2 minutes, you get 1 minute.
Yeah, no, I don't think it should be like that at all. But in case of abusive language and all of that, then there's 2 things that the chair should be able to do is ask them to stop speaking, or if they're going to refrain from profanity, then they need to leave. I think that should actually be in this next paragraph.
Okay, so as to reduce the confusion as much as possible, I would move that we strike that sentence, and if in a future session somebody figures out how to word it, we can insert it into the next paragraph.
Right. You're saying strike the sentence that starts with the mayor presiding officer?
Yes.
May shorten. I still don't understand why.
Okay, if once I'm no longer on the council and I get up there and I start making too much sense to the next council, the mayor might say, no, we don't like that. 30 seconds in, you're done. I don't think that that's an appropriate level of openness with our community.
Yeah, I think by the state rules, from my understanding, that's not even legal. So that's what I'm saying. I think that sentence is supposed to be meant for here. That whole sentence should be moved down to underneath, maybe the last sentence even. Because I think there needs to be some sort of tool there besides just kicking them out. If someone is going to be abusive in language,
So
there needs to be.
maybe we add it, as you say, to the end of the last sentence on the page. The mayor or presiding officer shall have the discretion to take any measures necessary to maintain control of a public meeting in order to ensure the fair and impartial conduct of business and the timely completion of that business. And we could say something like including shortening the time that the person's allowed to talk. I mean, if somebody gets unruly, we need to have some way of maintaining control. I agree with Brian, we don't want to run away mayor, but we're not going to completely idiot-proof this either. We need to have some semblance of control.
So my opinion, where you're saying.
So the last, if we all have the same printing, the last sentence, the mayor presiding officer shall have the discretion to take any measures necessary. So I wonder if we should move, losing track of the sentence here. Okay, move the sentence, the mayor presiding officer may at his or her discretion shorten the time for speaking. Somehow word that into that sentence, basically to say, in an effort to maintain retain control of the meeting, the mayor has the ability to cut somebody off.
And that's what David struck in now, and then we can make an amendment.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion on that?
I did. I didn't get a second, but I did make a motion that we strike the sentence.
It'd be nice to have this finished.
Did you make a motion to move that down
I
there?
think that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I make a motion that we take the sentence in the third paragraph from the bottom, the mayor presiding officer may, at his or her discretion, shorten time for speaking, and move it to right after the last sentence, fair and impartial conduct of business in the time of completion of that business. So that sentence would begin after the word business.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, it's been made by Jackie and seconded by White, that we strike the sentence from the third paragraph to the bottom of page 5 and put it at the end of the page. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
And my last one on this one, the very next sentence, no audible electronic device use is allowed in the council chambers. I have a feeling that there's a lot of audible electronic devices in here, but I can understand muting them, that kind of thing, but this is include if somebody wanted to give a presentation and they couldn't use a laptop to do that, or, I mean, it's a very blanket statement, but there could be legitimate uses for audible electronic devices.
Yeah, I think that's probably intended more to cover bullhorns and things that are meant to disrupt the meeting, so we might add a word or two that say no disruptive audible electronic devices.
Okay.
Because it's not that we can't record, it's a public meeting, people can record, but if somebody wants to get obnoxious and cranks up their boombox or their little megaphone.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and it's been seconded to put the word
Disrupted.
on the top of page 6, the first sentence, no disruptive audible electronic device use is allowed in the council chambers. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Any other discussion or amendments suggested?
Your Honor, no, Tara, for putting things on the website, I haven't done it recently, but this would be a good one to put out for the public to see.
I agree.
Just kind of to let them know how we intend to conduct business, and then they can hold us accountable to us.
Yeah, so once we get those amendments done, absolutely. Okay. All right, so just take a little time.
We need a motion to go through.
Okay, so we've made several amendments. Do we have a motion to pass this resolution adopting the town council decorum and procedures policy with all the amendments that we discussed and added?
I'll make a motion
Okay?
that
Oh,
the items noted.
okay.
Second.
Okay, so it's been seconded by Vincent. Okay, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, next on the agenda, do we have okay, that's a first. Okay, so there's no comments by citizens. Okay, so number 2, discuss and consider employment agreement with Caroline Chapman for town secretary. So Emily worked up this employment agreement. I think it's pretty straightforward. Because I know in our budget we approved like 15 hours a week, and that was 52 weeks in a year. So on a 5-week month, that would be up to 75 hours and 60 hours in regular. Because what I noticed from doing some of this,
illegal thing. Audible.
That's illegal now. That was disruptive, sorry.
Take her out, Constable.
I have to put that on silent. So, we changed it to, it's like up to 75 hours per month, because there's some weeks when it may only be 10 hours, and then other weeks it may be 20 hours, but for a maximum of 75 on a 5-week month. And then, it does have ebb and flow to it. I mean, if you have a long agenda of 19 items or something, then it's going to take a lot more time versus an item like tonight is 3, agenda that has 3 items.
There were a couple of comments, questions I had about it. First off, one of my comments was the 75 hours, so that's good to get out of the way. When we were discussing the initial hire, we talked about it being an independent contractor position, and I don't see that mentioned in the accounting, or in the contract. So it doesn't address tax withholding, vacation, et cetera, except to say that they have the benefits that anybody else employed by the town, which is no one has, so there's no basis for us to balance there. So,
In fact, it says shall be paid net of any applicable withholding or deduction, so that sounds more like an FTE.
Yeah, I think we need to look at that sentence, because this is, it would just be, it's a basic 1099 type of position.
Contract labor.
So that sentence right there might need to be struck.
and I really did want to slow this one down.
So what's the right wording, Terry? Is it just shall be paid as contract labor?
Yeah.
And I call it 1099. I don't know if that's the right term. In other words, it's up to her to make sure she pays Social Security or whatever, or her, or whoever is doing.
Was this on 3.1, Mike?
Yes, 3.1. Yeah, because right now it says shall be paid net of any applicable withholding or deductions required by applicable laws and authority. That sounds like we're going to withhold, but we aren't. We don't want to get into payroll.
Well, is that what it's saying? I mean, gross would include all those withholdings.
If we 1099 it, we give it to her, it's up to her to pay taxes.
But I think that the attorney's verbiage or definition here saying net, that's meaning anything less than that, no?
I think to me that means after.
After, that's the way I
Yeah,
interpret it as
After
well.
we withhold, and if we're not withholding, there's no net. She gets gross.
So I kind of feel like there should be a period after a month, and they strike the rest of that, and then just put she shall be a contract laborer,
Right.
and leave it simple.
Can you read this sentence like you said?
Yes. Under 3.1 salary, the town shall provide the secretary with an hourly pay rate in the sum of $15 per hour. This hourly rate shall be paid to the secretary by the end of the first week of each month. And then she shall be contract labor.
Or they shall
They shall be,
as contract labor?
should be paid as contract labor.
Right.
Do we have a motion for that? Or is-
I've got another couple.
Okay, can we go ahead and address that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we use the wording that you just shared, Tara.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so seconded by Benson, that we strike the last section of that sentence and then just add they shall be paid as contract labor.
Okay, on 2.2,
Wait, you need to do a vote.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, all those in favor
I
of,
think there's one more piece of discussion there.
Okay.
I think we should say the position shall be paid as contract labor, because they is a plural form, and we
yeah,
don't
that's a
have
little
one
awkward.
secretary.
The position shall, Okay, so you want to amend that motion?
Yes. So I amend the motion, so the sentence will read, end of the first week of each month, period. Next sentence, the position shall be paid as contract labor.
We have a
period.
second?
That's second.
Okay. All those in favor? And 4-0. It passes. Unless, Fowler, do you want to abstain, or
No, I'm opposed.
you oppose it?
I think they have, how they work is correct.
Okay, okay. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, on 2.2, it says, except to the extent prohibited by or in material conflict with laws, secretary shall attend all meetings of the council, both public and closed, with exception of those meetings, basically, it's still heard. And I think that needs to leave room to say something like, both public and closed, unless prohibited by illness, quarantine, injury, or excused by the mayor for personal reasons or something. You've got to leave. You can't say she has to be at every meeting if she's in quarantine, for example.
Didn't it say somewhere else?
Does it say that somewhere
I thought it
else?
said somewhere else, but you're right. I mean, it needs to probably say it there too. Okay. We have a wordsmith that would like to agree with that.
Okay. Yeah. And ending after applicable laws and authorities, comma, the secretary shall attend all meetings of the council, comma, both public and closed, comma, unless prohibited by illness, quarantine, or injury, or excused by the mayor for personal reasons, comma, then continuing on with the exception of. It's a long, wordy sentence.
Could we, say unless, instead of the quarantine, et cetera, could we say unless duly excused by the mayor? That way it leaves it open for a variety of instances where the mayor may be able to excuse them. Is that?
Yeah, it's just the idea that you can't tell somebody they've got to be there. if they're-
Agreed.
Can't do it.
Okay. Well, the way he suggested is more concise.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to accept what, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to figure out exactly how I worded that, so let me stare at it for a second.
Okay, Brian, let me try this. Is this both public and closed, comma, or excused by the mayor for personal reasons? Which can cover everything, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we can put that one right there before the period at the end of the sentence, unless excused by the mayor for personal reasons.
Yes.
At the end of that paragraph, then? Or at the end of the, just at the end?
End of the sentence is the end of the paragraph.
Okay, unless duly excused by the mayor for personal reasons. Is that a motion? So at the end of that sentence, okay, it says the secretary's evaluation for the purposes of resolving conflicts between individual council members unless excused by the mayor for personal reasons.
But do you even need to say for personal reasons, just excused by the mayor? Maybe other conflicts, you've got some other GRE, whoever it is. I don't know if you need to say personal reasons, just if the mayor excuses them for whatever reason, the cause, I think that's probably enough.
Unless it was excused by the mayor.
You did it correctly.
Okay, so the motion, is there a motion for this?
Go ahead.
Let me read it. So Except to the extent prohibited by or in material conflict with applicable laws and authorities, the secretary shall attend all meetings of the council, both public and closed, with the exception of those closed meetings devoted to the consideration of any action or lack of action on this agreement or any amendment thereto, the secretary's evaluation, or for purposes of resolving conflicts between individual council members, or unless duly excused by the mayor.
Is there a second?
That's the motion.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded by Jackie. I'm not going to agree with that. All those in favor of what was read, and that passes unanimously. Anything else?
Well, I guess one other is envisioning that this is something that's going to go on for a long time, and there may be other employees. Under page 1, under term, which says, nothing in this agreement shall prevent or limit the right of town council or the secretary to terminate the employment relationship at will at any time. And normally, what I've seen is that after any time, comma, for cause or convenience. In other words, I've seen get in trouble where people will say, is this charge of convenience or is this for cause? And so you put both of them in normally so that you don't leave that argument open for EEOC or anything else.
But that's what happens.
Well,
How will see the moving any conflict. I think that's the reason for the definition of outlaws, that
well, and I guess
You have to
that's
add it, but that's
a
what
question
happens
for
with
Tricia, and I was thinking to ask her, but just normally I've seen it do it. You say for cause or convenience, just eliminate it.
It doesn't have to make a motion.
I'm sorry?
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we add it at any time for cause or convenience.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded by Benson that we add the comma for cause or convenience to end of term 1.1. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
The last thing I have on it is attached Exhibit A, Section 2.1, the job description. I don't have an Exhibit A.
Exhibit A is what we voted on previously, the job description that we voted on earlier on.
Last meeting.
Well, it was, yeah, it was.
I'm getting old, okay. I'll accept that.
We're gonna invite them.
All right, I've just got a couple quick things. In the compensation 3.1 in the salary section, whenever it says at the end of the first week of each month, that's just monthly. I would advise we go to bi-weekly unless it causes too much trouble. That's just standard in the private or public sector. And I know my workers like that a lot better, so I prefer us to go bi-weekly. You'll know whether that causes us a lot more trouble on our technical side.
I know when I worked for the state hospital, it was once a month. But I don't have a problem, if I'm trying to.
How about the fire department? Bi-weekly?
Yeah, and then the IRS also pays bi-weekly, people that I've talked to with that, so.
I don't want to face anything of us from the IRS.
So I know having contract laborers, I know some of them want it every week. They're, paycheck to paycheck. Any thought on that? I don't have a problem with it being bi-weekly, every other week, in other words.
All right, and I think most people would, most secretaries that we hire would prefer to be paid more often. I mean, who would? So I move to strike in 3.1 where it says, I'll say, I actually move to change 3.1 from this hourly rate shall be paid to the secretary by the end of the first month of each, or end of the first week of each month, and change that to the hourly rate shall be paid to the secretary bi-weekly.
Say bi-weekly.
You want to say,
Yeah, let's establish a pay schedule, should be every, they do Fridays?
She is unavailable on Tuesdays and Fridays, so that may not be the best, but that works. What do you think? That works for me. I typically do payroll every other Thursday and Friday anyway, so I'm in the mojo of that, so I can do that. Because I don't see anybody else doing payroll on that.
Do you want to make it a specific day and kind of rein that in a little bit? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I just think we should establish a pattern where every other Friday.
Well, when
or
you do
first-
contract labor, one of the rules of that is it's not really, so typically you don't do that. That sets you up as more of an original employee. You don't really do that for contract labor. A 1099, they can submit an invoice and, you know, you're supposed to pay them. So contract labor, you don't do that typically.
So would that be the case if we schedule?
I mean, we could
further?
do just put in here bi-weekly, but leave it kind of like, you know, instead of once a month. But typically in contract labor, I mean, they submit an invoice and you gotta pay them.
Yeah, well, I've worked contract labor for many years of my life. Yeah, I could submit an invoice, but they told me they were going to cut the check.
Well, it depends on who the payroll clerk is too.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think it would help us to establish a cadence that we know when we need to be doing, you know, our due diligence, making sure checks are out, that kind of thing.
Fridays bi-weekly. You wanna just say, this hourly rate shall be paid to secretary
Friday.
bi-weekly and kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, your microphone cut out, so be paid.
That sentence, this hourly rate shall be paid to secretary on Fridays bi-weekly. And kind of do that, because depending on when she can start work, it varies, you know.
Yeah, I'll propose that.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by White, and a second by Fowler, to amend the second sentence on 3.1 to say this hourly rate should be paid to secretary Fridays bi-weekly. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
And then the only other comment that I had was in 2.5 hours of work. When talking about the monthly cap, it said the monthly hours cap herein may be amended after the first year of this agreement upon mutual agreement between the parties without further need to amend this agreement. I don't know why we'd have to wait that first year. I mean, if both parties agree to it, then might as well implement it whenever we need it.
So maybe we change that to say, may be amended at any time upon mutual agreement.
Well, if that's the case, do we need sentence that says that we can do something?
Yeah, no, if it's the case that we're just gonna do it willy-nilly, then, you know, do we need a sentence that says that we're going to be able to do it willy-nilly? I kind of like having that first year just as a check. If we're not gonna do that, if we're not gonna keep the sentence, then I would go with, up to the 75 hours sentence. And say that performing no more than 75 hours of work per month, or as amended, you know.
Well, one thing to consider in the budget, we can't go over.
Yeah. At this point, that wouldn't be a reason to stick with it. We only have so much budget, and we would have to increase the budget in order to allow.
So it's kind of self-limiting that way.
Yeah,
mean-
I think we should keep it.
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna be something we actually have to concern ourselves, so I'm not gonna fight real hard for it, but, you know, we know that we have to amend the budget if that ended up being a thing. maybe we spent, half as much as we expected on the secretary the first half. Maybe the secretary needed some more money on on quarter 3 and 4, and we needed some more work. And if they want it, and we want it, then who are we helping out by keeping ourselves tied down to a year?
And that's where we get volunteers, I guess. If we want to stay in budget, that's where we solicit for some help. I mean, I would love to have that flexibility, it's just, I'm reading the government codes, I don't think we have all that much flexibility on that. I really can't, I wish, but there has to be some sort of.
Well, if they worked, half as many hours as we budgeted for quarter 1 and 2, potentially, and like I said, this is an odd circumstance, but, and then in quarters 3 and 4, they needed to work a bit more, and we had the money for it because we didn't
I
spend
see what you're
it.
saying.
Again, I suggest we keep it, we're trying to solve for an edge case here that's going to be moved in 2 months.
Make a motion, we accept the employment agreement with all of the amendments.
Is there a second?
Second, can you read what this last one is?
Well, I think,
Okay.
I'm suggesting we abandon it, I'm with Brian.
That you write?
We abandon it, that we make no changes, we leave it to say after 1 year, because that holds us to the budget, and then if we, as long as we're within the budgeted number, whether it's in first quarter, second, third, or fourth,
Okay.
I think we're gonna be okay, but we need to be true to the budget for the year. I just wanna make sure we don't
Because
leave
it
here.
doesn't say that you can't, so it only says you can only, you work no more than 75 hours of, I see what you're saying, more. So if you struck that and you just said, how many,
We have a motion.
You do.
Second.
well, Tom was asking for clarification.
We can still discuss it after it's been seconded and then call the vote yet.
Yeah, so Tom brought up the question, and maybe there's a better way to say that than saying performing no more than 75 hours of work per month. Maybe to keep budget, we just do a different calculation. $780 hours per year. And then that way you have flexibility. It doesn't matter if you have, maybe you might have a 40-hour month and then you might have a 90-hour month. So it gives you that flexibility maybe I think that's what you were asking for, right?
Right.
And that makes a lot of sense because, around budget time, we're going to need a lot more hours versus maybe December when we hopefully don't have much going on. So that does make a lot of sense to me.
I think flexibility in government is where a lot of things start going wrong. I would like to have something specified that is enforceable, that we understand month to month where we are. If we need to bump it up to 80 hours a month, whatever, but I'm just saying, I would like to have something definitive so that we're not flexing throughout the year, we don't quite know where we are.
Well, I see your point, but I think that what Simeon is saying is valid. Maybe there's a better way to put it. Maybe we have a cap of 100 hours or something, but then no more than 780 for the year.
I would say, to be fair to the secretary, that we still include the wording saying, upon the agreement of both parties, because whoever the secretary might have, as we've said, they can have another part-time job. So just to give them some expectation, but should it be mutually beneficial, then let's not hold ourselves back. Like you were saying, to start making them handy for certain seasons. I mean, we can't predict the future. We might be overloaded 1 month, with legislation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point, Simeon. So if maybe there is
of, like I said, just around 100, but, and then just for the year, 780, or maybe there's a better way to say that, but I think providing a little more flexibility than as it is written might be good.
If you put it per year, then you gotta define year. And when is it? To me, it's fine just the way it is, because it's clear. 75 hours of work per month. Once you get into the year, is it, when does it start, when does it end? So, I think it's better to keep it straightforward and clear and simple than it is now.
So typically a year would be from the signing of the contract to.
It wouldn't be a budgetary year?
Well, I mean, I guess we could define that October 1st to
That's
September
That's
31st.
exactly what Tom was saying,
Yeah.
that introduces ambiguity.
But this is gonna be a template for others, possibly, as we go forward, and that's why I think it's better to keep it straightforward. Because you could have one person on 1 year cycle, and another person on another year cycle. Well, just keep it straightforward and clear.
Well, I don't mind that much, so not seeing a lot towards it. So I just move to approve the town secretary employment agreement as currently amended.
We already have that motion.
No, there's two.
We were in discussion, so we have that and seconded.
Okay, so you have who seconded that?
Oh, yeah. I
Made the
said-
motion and seconded, okay, seconded by White.
I did, Kathy.
Jaffe made the motion and seconded by
White.
White. Okay, all those in favor of approving this employment agreement as amended? And that passes unanimously. Okay, so the final discussion point for our agenda is discuss and consider a template franchise agreement for solid waste vendors servicing poetry.
I will start the discussion. Thankfully, after our last meeting, I handed off 4 pages of notes to our council, and I'm down to a quarter page, so this can go a whole lot faster than it would. Section 3, where we're talking about the registration fee. How are we enforcing the registration fee?
How am I enforcing any of it?
Kind of my point.
Well, like every other town is.
Other towns have police officers and
I know, I did talk to Patricia about this a little bit via email, and she had an answer that I don't quite understand. I got to go through a little more detail with her, but I got her in a minute, and that was it. But
well, if that's still part of the discussion, then I'm not gonna belabor the point and draw this out any further. It is something I would like to know the answer to, though.
on that point, I was kind of thinking that we would have to have some sort of certificate or something, maybe a sticker or some way of logistically doing that, so that it could be easily determined. I mean, that's clear.
Okay. Any other discussion on that one? All right, my next point was on section 7, terms of agreement. Okay, so we said the collector makes a request to renew at least 60 days before the end of the term. The town can give notice within 45 days that we're not going to be renewing. And when the annual fee is due, I think they have 120 days or something. So when does this thing end if they're not going. I mean, but right now we have several members in several different places, and I think that we kind of need to consolidate on, if you haven't renewed by a specific date, which is also the specific date of minutes, say 60 days out, then everybody knows that trash service is no longer going to be performed.
What page are you on?
This is page 3, section 7, at the bottom of the page. This agreement may be renewed and extended for one additional one-year period, provided that the collector and town mutually agree in writing at least 60 days prior to the expiration of the initial term, etc. And then we also have that they have a registration fee, but we don't have a note of when the registration fee is payable. And under, it's later in my comments, but in section 20, under termination, we have 120 days prior to failing, we have 120 days to renew. So, we're kind of divided up in several different places, and it's confusing. To me, reading the document, I'm sure it would be confusing to the collectors to try to figure out when they need to have their paperwork in so that they don't get canceled.
So I guess you kind of open my eyes on that registration fee again. Is it a one-time vendor registration fee just to capture all the important?
Well, it says it lasts for 1 year, it's an annual.
So then when they resubmit for the renewal that can be renewed one time, they would also have to reapply for the, or re-register it.
We don't have a timeline associated with that registration fee.
So I have here, it's on section 11.
Let me find it.
Just to put some dates and times to this agreement so that it's more clear, because I know it would be confusing to know when everything's due if we don't actually put a date.
Oh, no, got it.
You go. What's your next one?
Thank you.
You go. Okay, so we have a proposed amendment of on section 11 of the franchise fee payment. If this agreement is entered into or terminated in the middle of a quarter, the applicable quarter will be prorated to exclude the time during the quarter in which no service was provided. And that would be the case for this quarter because obviously it's October 7th. Now, people may vary, but I didn't think they should be charged for October, and it should be starting in November. So that October would be prorated off of this quarter. So I have on here first quarter February 10th, second quarter April 9th, third quarter August 9th, and fourth quarter November 9th. But that would be with the proration of October off of there, the fees for October off of there.
Okay, so that's the franchise payments, but
But in order to even sign this contract, my understanding is to sign the contract, they have to pay the $100 fee
right,
with the contract.
right. And then, again, we have, so that's in section 3, they pay the $100 fee to initiate the contract, and I guess they would have 12 calendar months, 365 calendar days that's two different things, to renew if they choose to do so. But we also have we have the franchise fee schedules in section 10. But we also have notice if they don't plan to renew. And that's 60 days according to section 7, hundred and 20 days according to section 20, and the town has 45 days before the end of the term to cancel. So, again, there's confusion there outside of when the franchise fees are due. We still have, when are these guys expected to let us know that they're gonna continue? When are we expected to let them know that we're okay with that? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So if we put something in here, Brian, that says that by the end of the third quarter, they will either decide if they're gonna continue their service into the next year or remove themselves from the vendor list, would that fix the problem?
Was that the third quarter of their service, the third quarter of the budgetary year, the third quarter of the
Well, we can put
calendar year?
of their service,
Their contract here.
of their contract year. I mean, would that fix it? Because that would give us 120 days or a quarter to, to be notified. And then I would think, because this is a franchise deal and the city's not running this is a third city service, that they would have the, the burden to tell their customers that they're no longer going to provide trash service here.
So it says 60 days, okay, so this is two different things. So the term of agreement is 60 days prior to the expiration of the initial term. So if they say they sign by October 20th, then it would be 60 days prior to that for the next year. And what you're talking about the other day is this is actually, if we choose to terminate them for some reason, then that's a whole different thing. If in the event of termination for the reasons 1 through 6 here, bankruptcy,
Yeah, look at 6C.
all these 6 things, then we have 30 days to give them a reason for that. And then the collector may also terminate, but not less than 120 days before the date set forth. But as far as renewal, it's just simply, the renewal it would be from their contract date. So if one vendor signed on October 20th and one signed on October 30th, then it would be 60 days prior to that expiration date. Would it not?
Yeah, but then, again, under section 20, the collector may terminate this agreement upon written notice received by the town not less than 120 days before the date set forth. So they can terminate at 120 days in section 20 or in 60 days in section 7.
But that's not.
I don't believe that's termination. That's just renewal.
Okay, so what would be the functional difference between non-renewal and termination of service?
Well, termination would be if there's some grievance against them, then, or if maybe the vendor wants to move to Hawaii, then they say 120 days ahead of time, they let us know, hey, maybe it's April of next year, or maybe it's March of next year, and they say, hey, we're gonna give you 120 day notice, we were going out of business. Okay, this other one is just before the next year, they're renewing their contract. And then the 30 days is for, if we have a problem with something, failure to collect, by the terms of the agreement, then in 30 days, they better, we can give them 30 days, or they're terminated.
I'm still going back to the lack of renewal versus termination. They decide that they're going to go out of business. Okay, but they don't, at 120 days, file a termination notice with us. They just don't renew in 60 days. It's effectively functionally the same thing. And I'm just saying there's a bunch of numbers in here that can get really confusing.
They're used in different terms though. If they're intentionally terminating, they have 120 days to let us know. That's a consideration for our accountants people. But if it's 60 days before the end of the year, so they have 60 days to renew for the following years. That's renewal, that's pretty common. But this is all under termination. Termination, we have 30 days, we were asking for 120 days for them to please give us notice if you're gonna retire, if you're gonna move, or if you're gonna stop service in the area, please give us 120 days, that's just a courtesy. But if you fail to give prompt and courteous attention, and you have numerous complaints that have been unresolved, and you're doing a bad job, we're gonna give you 30 days to fix it when you're out. And that's for our citizens, I think, to protect our citizens, isn't it?
Brian, I see both those points. So what if we elected to amend that section C to say 60 days? But they can terminate their contract in 60 days.
Yeah, well, and it circles back around to my first question about enforcement, really. Because if we get to day 0, they decide that they haven't let us know that they're terminating, and they haven't renewed, and they just don't show up, then I'm not understanding why we have contract language that we're thinking is protecting us, that we're setting forth terms and conditions that we cannot reasonably expect to be able to enforce.
But in this contract, in order to protect them, saying, okay, y'all have the exclusive right as a group to conduct business in this town. We're gonna reap the franchise fees, but this is what allows them to do it.
This is what allows them to do business in poetry, correct? And yes, it is as much for their benefit. Well, it is as much for their benefit as it is for ours, as for the towns. But I'm just saying that I think we have some items stuffed in here, and I don't mean stuffed by in a negative context. I just think we have verbiage in here that it's not enforceable, and it doesn't functionally make a difference in how this relationship is going to work. So I don't see why we would want to do it.
So could we have, would the solution be, as Terry was suggesting, switch C to say 60 days? And then that way, on both ends, it matches.
That would reduce the confusion in numbers, and I'm okay with that. It just doesn't eliminate the overall point of, there's no teeth here, so I don't know why we're tracking.
Well,
You said that Patricia had said something about it that we weren't 100% clear on it. Do you think that's a problem? I mean, what's the practical problem of trying to enforce this? Or do you have a solution for how we should enforce it? Is that what you're saying, that you want to equip us with something to do about it?
The answer to that question may depend on what Patricia comes back with as far as what we can do to enforce it. If there is a method of enforcing, if this does serve some practical purpose, then that's great, and I'm all for it. If it doesn't serve a practical purpose and it's just more verbiage put into a document, then the editor needs to strike it.
well, these vendors are obviously well beloved. I mean, we've been discussing it for months, and they're well beloved. I think can't be. I mean, there's always exceptions, but if they've been in our area for a number of years, and I think they're well beloved, then hopefully it would go well.
I understand that, and I truly believe that the vendors that we have, by the way, I was sitting with her battery's about to go out. I think they're going to do what is necessary for the town. I truly believe that their customers love them, and they love them for a reason. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to have a contract, we don't back off on language in a contract because everybody agrees. We have contracts for those instances where people don't agree. And so that we can go back and say, this is what we're intending, this is what the consequences are, this is the contract. And I don't understand what the difference is in the days. And again, if we change it to 60, then we don't have differences in the day. But I don't understand why we have verbiage in that is effectively not enforceable? And what difference does it make in the long term of the contract?
So is there, for this, okay, I hear what you're saying. Is there a motion to address this section 20 under C? Do we want to have a motion to change that for now? And then get us
Section 20.
section 20 under termination, item C.
60, change 120 days to 60 days. That's a move.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to change section 20 under termination under C. Instead of 120 days, to strike that and put 60 days in its place. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
Okay, Brian, I don't want to beat the dead horse on the trash, because we've talked about it, so that's. I do want to point out though, that on that section 7, that there's a lot of this that doesn't have teeth, but us hiring a contractor doesn't have teeth either, right? We can fire them, but this does allow us maybe some forecasting if that vendor comes to us and says, hey, I'm not going to renew my contract with y'all. At least it gives us some forecasting. If we as a city need to go out and do some advertising and say, hey, we're still looking for vendors, we just have a franchise fee. So that I do see the benefit on that side as far as forecasting for us if they don't want to do business in our town anymore. If they leave. There is no enforcement at that point. Unless they're still doing business in our town, and of course we'll have to get that from leadership. But I do like that just for forecasting from council if we need to see additional vendors or whatever reason.
Thank you. I just have one more item here, and maybe it's less contentious. I don't know. We'll see. Section 12, please. This is under spillage. Okay. The relevant phrase is, the town shall require the customer to increase the frequency of collection. This is, if they repeatedly, let me see if I can find the full sentence here. So that those in the audience can understand. Okay. Should excess residential or municipal solid waste continue to be placed outside of containers, the town shall require the customer to increase the frequency of collection of such residential or municipal waste, or require the customer to utilize a container with sufficient capacity so that the excess residential or municipal waste can be regularly contained. Basically, if your trash is on the side of the street, you have to, the paragraph says you have to either increase frequency or upgrade the size of the container. So my comment is, we're not going to be telling the collectors that they have to increase frequency because one person can't get their trash in the container, right?
I think Brian French kind of addressed that, saying that they would allow it from time to time, but if they had a frequent flyer that was doing that, they may then get another flyer. Really, I had the same section to talk about. I think this could need to go into the ordinance if we're seeing it as an eyesore or something like that. That's more of a solid waste ordinance, not a franchise to me.
Right. And so that was my follow-up statement. Since this is a collector agreement, but a customer responsibility, should we even be penning this in the collector franchise agreement to discuss, because it's not their responsibility to fulfill. So I'm suggesting that we would scratch that and put it in the ordinance.
Or could it say that the vendor would then ask for them, like I think Mr. French was saying, the vendor, it would be on town necessarily, be the vendor would ask them to get an additional qualifier if they needed.
No.
That's what Mr. French was talking about.
I can see if, if the collector wanted to have, and hopefully they will have that relationship with their customers, that they say, hey, the cat keeps getting into your trash, you need to get another cart or upgrade your cart. I think that's great. But it's an issue with the behavior of the customer, not an issue with the behavior of the collector. So I don't think that we should put that responsibility on the collector to enforce the customer's behavior beyond what they can control.
Is it maybe there to give the vendor some backup? I think that's what it's there.
Which is why we would put it into the ordinance.
If I remember right, didn't we amend that ordinance, or somebody mentioned that they had to have a certain size car and all that?
It's
I mean,
just
you
20
could-
gallons to 95
You couldn't
gallons.
just sit loose trash out anyway, so that's kind of back on all that. What you're saying, it's just loose trash that's set aside.
Well, I would purposely want to leave this a little bit vague. I know in my relationship with Kim and them, I mean, we have an agreement. I have certain poly carts and the trash needs to be inside the poly carts. And I know when I was with Waste Management or Progressive, whoever they are, if I put one item outside the cart, they write me a ticket and not pick up any of my trash. And so really it's the vendor, the trash collector that's going to enforce this. I think to Tara's point, I read this really is almost a hybrid of a town that has an exclusive relationship where you're enforcing trash stuff. But I think this does give the vendor a little backup. So Kim or somebody's got somebody misbehaving, they can call Tara and say, hey, you know, Mr. Johnson just continues to pile black bags everywhere. We keep telling them, just so you know, it's not us, okay? We're telling the guy to do it right. He's not. And then, we do what we want. But I don't think we want to get too much into what color the container, how many containers, or any of that. To me, that's part and parcel of the relationship between the person picking up the trash and the customer.
But to Ron's point, it says the town shall require the customer to increase frequency, so forth and so on.
Let's switch that to May.
Well, we can't change frequency. I mean,
Yeah, I don't like the frequency. I don't think that's necessary. Well, I guess if it's a roll-off or a dumpster, it might be necessary. But that just says residential.
I would be more comfortable since this is in the collector franchise ordinance. Instead of saying the town shall, ellipses, require the customer to utilize a container. I would be more comfortable with the town authorizes the collector to issue the customer a larger container, something along those lines. Issue a bill for a larger container or a second container. That gives them the teeth that they need to do what we're asking them to do.
Okay, so authorizing the collector to issue a second container or more frequent pickups of the dumpster.
Instead of a second container, make it an additional container, because they may already have.
Okay, additional, that's a good point. And then also, or more frequent.
May I ask an expert question? Either of you guys, would you be willing to impose an additional container on a customer if they're frequently?
We do that now.
You do it now. So let's give them the teeth to make it legal.
If it's a weekly thing, we have to have another container. If it's once a week, it's not that big of a deal.
What do y'all do if they don't, they just continue to follow trash?
We eventually stop picking up their extra.
And then
They either
sometimes
need
they'll
another
complain.
container. I'm sorry?
And then they would complain sometimes.
So this, I like what you're saying there, Brian. So we're backing them up and we're saying that we authorize the collector to issue an additional container or require more frequent pickups of a roll-off or dumpster, if deemed necessary or deemed. If deemed necessary. Okay, so okay, so is okay. Should excise
let me go ahead and read this. Should excess residential or municipal waste continue to be placed outside the container, the town authorizes the collector to issue an additional container or more frequent pickups of rollover dumpsters if deemed necessary. Okay, do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we amend section 12 with the wording that Tara just read off.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion, and it's been seconded by Benson, that we revise section 12 of spillage, as I just read, to back up our vendors. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
Is that all you have, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I want to ask you some questions about section 17. Why she's changing the batteries. And this is for education for me and everybody up here. I've had some questions asked about it. I reached out to multiple vendors on this. So section 17 is the insurance coverage. I know this is in line with what our ordinance is, but maybe we need to reconsider it. And the question is on the environmental impairment. Tara, if you help me, this was given to us by Patricia, this section that we did on the ordinance. So I only got 2 vendors to answer back, and one vendor's underwriter says they've been doing it for 20 years, and they don't know what that is, and they've been researching it. And the other one said that what his insurance agent thought it was hazardous and toxic, but we already have an ordinance that says that they can't haul hazardous and toxic. So this would be, in my mind, an undue hardship on the vendors that we already have working in this town, since it's not a coverage that they currently have, nor do any of the other cities they work for have to have it. So I just wanted to see what y'all's thoughts on the environmental impairment section. I look back at the ordinance we passed, and I thought I had it right here with me, but, that's where we started talking about the dead animals and all that. But it specifically says in there that they're not allowed to haul hazardous materials. And that's what this insurance is allowing them to haul.
Or abandoned cars.
Right.
So it seems frivolous.
Exactly. So we're asking them to pay more money for insurance on
Right.
something that we won't allow them to haul. So I would like to, I'd make a motion, if everybody's in agreement, to strike that, and then we will need to go back in our ordinance and also strike that.
Second.
Wait,
Is this exact wording in our ordinance? I don't have a copy of it.
if I remember right, this whole section right here is in our ordinance, and this is what comes from, and I was trying to pull it up real quick, I thought I had that. Does anybody have the ordinance from that?
Well, let's correct this tonight because it's on the agenda.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to delete the environmental impairment clause under the insurance coverage.
Second. White seconds.
Okay, so we have a motion, and it's been seconded by White to scratch under section 17 of insurance cover, the bottom tier, which says environmental impairment / impact sufficiently broad to cover disposal liability on an occurrence basis of $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
All right, and I just had a question about dates. Yeah, another question. You agree? You got the, when they could terminate, I'll get their payment. Because it's my understanding that a few of our vendors do this monthly, and it looks like it's set up to work with quarterly payments. Like if they got in their payment, if I'm understanding this right, January 1st, then they pay it February 10th. Well, if they're billing monthly, then when do they pay Marches? Do they pay that on April the 9th? Because I don't think it's worded that way.
So in our ordinance, we did quarterly, I think that was to because there is a lot of changeover, but to help them, they have to come up with their listing every quarterly, not monthly. That would be a lot more work, I think, for the vendors, and giving them, a little time to figure it all out. And then the payment, so they would submit their list according to the ordinance. They submit their list quarterly and the payment of franchise fee quarterly. So I think there are some who bill monthly, but our franchise fee would be due except every quarter. And I think that helps even it out, because I know in business it lasts and wanes, so I think, is that what you were?
Well, I think it'd be convenient for us to get it in quarterly, no doubt. It would just restrict the people who are doing monthly. They might have to change, and we might have to clarify that they're supposed to bill the customer.
Well, they can bill a customer either monthly or quarterly, however they want to, but the fees that we receive are totally kind of a whole different bill. It's like they just pay us a quarterly bill.
Are we assuming that we're 1 quarter in arrears? So Q1 this year is for their Q4 last year?
What did you say?
So is October, November, December paid in February?
No, so on here, according to the ordinance, it's 40 days after the start of each quarter. So this quarter started October 1st, so that's why this first quarter, or excuse me, this end quarter of the year, it's the first payment, is due November 9th.
So this is.
But it would be prorated, so it probably wouldn't be much, right? It wouldn't be really anything.
We invoice monthly and we invoice month behind.
This is basically saying they're going to have to prepay.
Well, okay,
Because
so-
if they're having to pay for Q1, January through March, in February, they're having to pay for half of February and March before they receive pay.
That's what I was gonna say for the monthly.
Well, in the ordinance, that was the way it was written, that we have, it's on the 40th day. And that's why I wrote this out, because I'm like, okay, in the ordinance, we put the 40th day at the start of the quarter, after the start of the quarter, and I was digesting that. I was like, okay, so if it's the 40th day into the quarter, then they will actually only collect a month's worth
See, and
of
that's
fees.
unreasonable. That revisit the ordinance. When I was saying 40 days, I was expecting on money that's been collected,
Yes.
not on.
I thought it was the following the subsequent quarter, you would be paying on the 40th day for the money you collected.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
We
I
need to go and
misunderstood
revisit the
Let's fix this, and then we'll make the ordinance
Yeah.
match this.
So how, okay, do you want to make it, so saying 40, I know, I didn't, so in digesting that, I was like, well, that's kind of difficult. Would we rather maybe say at the end of the quarter? So like, October's kind of a wash, but, so November, they would collect November, December, and then maybe it's due 10 days before the end of the quarter or something.
Can it be 10 days after the quarter?
I
10 days
think we
after.
can solve it with one word. If you read along, the franchise fee shall be paid to the town on or before the 40th day after the beginning of each quarter for amounts received by the collector for the performances of services during the previous quarter, according to the dates provided below.
You also might wanna change 40th to 10. You know, there's
That's
no
what I
reason.
think too.
Yeah.
I like previous, but now we're waiting 40 days.
Yeah.
I think if they collected over the last 3 months, surely within 10 to 14 days, they can get that to us. We can ask them if it's undue, but I don't think that's that difficult. So to make 2 changes, previous and then if we agree 10th or.
All right, then I propose to amend section 11, franchise fee payment, to say franchise fee shall be paid to the town on or before the 10th day after the beginning of each quarter.
You know what, that is right now.
For the amounts received by the collectors for the performance of services during the previous quarter according to the dates provided below.
That makes a whole lot more sense to me. So the chart there will be different then. So for an October, November, December, it's typically the fourth quarter of every year. So my understanding then would be due January 10th would be the first payment for this fourth quarter.
asking the experts again, I'm not asking if you like it, I'm just asking is that doable?
We like the 10 or 14 days, the 40, that stretches it too far, it's going to be confusing.
Yeah, so the 10th day, so, I mean, just like quarterly taxes, you know, you have so many days after the quarter, so that makes a lot more sense.
But what, I guess maybe it's the 40 that threw it off, so are we going on a calendar quarter, so January, February, March would be quarter one?
I mean, that's typical, that's common.
Right, and so
Commonly used,
the
so that makes
payment for
sense.
that would be due by the 10th day of April or something.
The 10th day on the start of the next quarter.
But we're starting the fourth quarter, so January 10th would be the first payment we would
January
receive
10th would be the first
for
one.
quarter 4 of this year.
That's correct, okay. But do these dates work, or do we need to change these dates? Yeah, I think they're out of the line.
Right,
It'll
and
eventually catch up.
so we understand, well, maybe this needs to be discussed, but my thought was, okay, so that they sign this contract agreement October 20th, or October 30th, they're going to be charged for October, because it's not even started yet, but it could start November, first month after the
Well, Kim
contract.
brings up a good point, we don't know what the other vendors do either, they provide a service, then they invoice for it 30 days later.
Well, that's up to them, but, you know, it should be fair to all, you know, if
And
we
I agree,
charge.
but we, you know, in one of the sections, we talk about, you know, that we can't charge them, franchise fees on money that's not collected. So they're kind of, you know, for bad debts and so forth. So if that money's not collected, it's not collected. Now, the next payment we receive will actually be 1 month into quarter 1 and 2 months into quarter 2. But if they haven't collected that money, they
That's like
can't.
40 days.
Yeah, I mean, here you go again, right?
Yeah.
But they provide a service, just like Emily will do. Then they provide us an invoice, and then we'll pay it. And we can't charge them franchise fees on money that's not collected, be it bad debt or
So,
the payments.
I think the chart actually works out. So, you'll know whether or not you got your payment, or the vendors will know whether or not they got their payment at the end of December, and they will pay us in February. That gets,
Well, this first
That's
one's
over
November
a month.
9th. Yeah,
It is,
I
it's
think it
over.
should be the 10th of the next quarter.
I think that's the original purpose of the 40 days, is so if they're billing and they didn't get a monthly payment, they won't know that until after they've paid us franchise fees. We're saying that they don't owe us anything on something they didn't bill. So we're basically giving them the month to see if they got the bill in, or if they got the payment in, and then 10 days to remit that payment. That's basically what we're looking at.
Well, could we ask them how long they need?
So experts sitting at the table there, so does that make sense that in order, because if December rolls around and someone doesn't pay you, then would it make more sense to go ahead and wait that 40 days? Or
I
or not?
So because hopefully eventually they're still gonna pay us, because they're gonna need their trash picked up. It might be 2 weeks late, so we're still going to collect that franchise fee, and we're still going to get franchise.
So you think it would actually make it more confusing just to wait that long?
I do.
Okay. All right, there you go. So,
And if we implemented.
are there any other experts here present? We've got 2 represented here, the 2 CRS and Titan. Yes, sir, would you like to comment? Oh, AWT, okay, yes. Do you have an opinion on the matter?
Well, how we do it is, you know, they miss a month, we don't even pick them up. So if I understand what I'm saying, y'all basically saying that, we pay the fees and everything like that, which is fine. But, if we have to collect a payment from them for like 2 months, would we be expected to pay the fee for them?
Well, on your chart that you would submit with your payment, you say, okay, they haven't paid, and no, you're not.
It's a bad debt.
That's a bad debt, you're not required to pay on a bad debt. I mean, that seems only fair.
We're only asking them to submit the monies that they collected. So really, the intent works at that point. I agree with what you're saying, Rob, but if we're only requiring them to submit what they've collected, then it is what it is.
Well, so if someone got arrears, then that wouldn't be on
additional from the following quarter that they made it up or something.
I put something out there that you're writing the rules of the game. So we invoice in arrear because when we started this, we said we would invoice in arrear because I'm not charging you for something I didn't do. Okay? Same thing, if you live in a real city where you're writing water, sewer, and trash, they're gonna get that bill at the end of the month. So the way y'all write it, y'all can write it that way, and it forces whoever your vendor to operate the same way. You provide the service, and you collect. It's not gonna change that much in their computer system. They're paying at the beginning and paying it, but it makes it more fair to the city rules of this is your water, this is your trash, this is your sewer.
Out of all fairness, we're not trying to tell you how to do your business. We just want to tell you how to pay the city.
We do it that way because
I agree with it, but I don't want
I
to
can't
get
charge you for
the
something.
business of telling them when.
We can learn a lot doing it, but.
Yeah, you learn a lot. But you can write the rules.
So, okay, so as far as the time frame goes, okay, so Cindy, do you have a second?
Yeah, I think we voted on it.
No, we didn't vote on it.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we can repeat that, please, that motion.
Sure, and we want to edit these dates, right? We want it January 10th, and then April 10th, August 10th, and November 10th, is that right? We want these dates edited, what do we?
I think that's right. If we take the 40 out.
January 10th, April 10th.
Yeah, is it, because it should be all months changed if once changed.
Would be April 10th. July 10th.
How many politicians does it take?
I think it's September 10th. It's 7 months.
Okay, so January 10th, April 10th, July 10th, and September 10th
Okay.
would be the due dates. And that's nice and October 10th?
Oh, yes, that's right, it is October 10th.
It is October 10th, you're right. Okay, January 10th, April 10th, July 10th, and October 10th.
Okay, and,
I've gone to monthly, so I don't do quarterlies anymore.
Okay, put that in your amendment.
all right, I'll just read this out again. I propose to make an amendment to section 11, the franchise fee payment. Change the first sentence to franchise fee shall be paid to the town on or before the 10th day after the beginning of each quarter for the amounts received by the collector for the performance. You know what? It's actually after, isn't it? Didn't we change it to on or? No, it is. No, I'll continue where I left off. By the collector for the performance of the services during the previous quarter, according to the dates provided below, and then scratching the first quarter being February 10th and changing that to January 10th, scratching the second quarter being April 9th to April 10th, the third quarter scratching that, being August 9th to August 10th. July. Okay, to July 10th. And then scratching the fourth quarter, November 9th to October 10th.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion's been made by Wright and seconded by Jackie, as read, to amend the fee schedule from the vendors to the town of Poetry. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
What's that?
Just to double suspenders, Tara, we need a motion to approve this with all of the amendments, just to make sure that we don't get hung up in technicality. So I make a motion that we approve the franchise agreement for collection, hauling, and disposal of municipal, residential, solid waste, and construction demolition waste in the town of Poetry, Texas, with all of the prior approved amendments wrapped up in
Second.
The motion's been made by Jaffe and seconded by Fowler. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, so that is all of our items. Do we have any general comments? Okay, so with no further comments and no further discussion or agenda items, did you have a comment? Okay.
We actually get, before the contract comes out, a detailed map of the city, not that thing that everybody's got, but a real map. Because I've had numerous customers on the route tell me, don't worry, I'm not in the city, but.
We have